What if your quietest moment of humiliation became the first step in changing the course of history? He was thrown off a train like he didn't matter. But that night, he realized something that would shake empires. Mahatma Gandhi didn't raise a weapon. He raised awareness. And the world would never be the same. You may never know what results come of your actions, but if you do nothing, there will be no result. Mahatma Gandhi. Part 1. The Train Ride That Sparked a Revolution. The year was 1893. A young Indian lawyer named Mohandas Gandhi had just begun working in South Africa. One evening, he boarded a train from Durban to Pretoria, dressed in a Western-style suit, holding a valid first-class ticket. But to the white passengers and railway officials, Gandhi's appearance, his brown skin, was unacceptable. When he refused to move to a third-class compartment, he was forcibly removed from the train, dragged out, thrown onto the cold platform at Pietermaritzburg station. Alone in the dark, in freezing night air, something inside him stirred. Most would have been humiliated or enraged. But Gandhi, he reflected, that experience wasn't just painful, it was illuminating. He saw clearly, maybe for the first time, that injustice wasn't just a series of events. It was a system, one that relied not only on force, but on silence. That night, as he sat shivering on the stone platform, he made a decision. He would no longer be silent, but he wouldn't fight with violence either. He would fight with truth, with dignity, with presence. He would not allow another person to feel the helplessness he had just experienced. Later, he would call it a spiritual experience because it didn't just awaken anger, it awakened purpose. That single train ride, so seemingly small, became the beginning of a movement that would ripple across continent. From the dust of a cold platform in South Africa, a revolution in nonviolence was born. And in the next chapter of Gandhi's journey, that quiet fire would begin to spread to salt, to sea, to sovereignty. After being thrown from a train for the color of his skin, Gandhi learned that silence could be a weapon. But it would be years later, with his feet blistered and spirit unshaken, that he would wield it like never before. Part 2. Salt, Sand, and Sovereignty. In 1930, Gandhi launched one of the most legendary acts of civil disobedience in modern history, the Salt March. It began with a simple truth. Salt, the very substance that flavored food and preserved life, was taxed by the British. Indians were forbidden from collecting their own. The empire had turned a basic necessity into a tool of control. Gandhi saw this not as an inconvenience, but as an opportunity. He announced a 240-mile march on foot from his ashram to the Arabian Sea. Day after day, barefoot, step by step, Gandhi walked. What began with a small group grew into a movement. Along the dusty roads, villagers left their homes to join him. Farmers, students, workers, thousands followed, not with fists, but with faith. Their destination? A beach. Their mission? To bend down and pick up what belonged to them all along. And when Gandhi finally reached the sea and scooped a handful of salty water in his hand, letting it run through his fingers like grains of truth, the world paused. This act wasn't violent. It wasn't loud, but it thundered through history. Tens of thousands were arrested in the weeks that followed, including Gandhi himself. But the British had already lost something greater than territory. They lost the narrative. Because Gandhi had exposed the absurdity of their rule. And he did it without raising a hand. With each mile, each blister, each grain of sand, Gandhi had shown his people and the world that true strength doesn't come from domination. It comes from unwavering purpose. And in the next chapter, when that purpose would be threatened by division and violence, Gandhi would once again choose silence, not to retreat, but to heal. After shaking the British Empire with a handful of salt, Gandhi would face an even greater challenge, not from foreign rulers, but from his own people. Part 3. The Hunger Strike That Stopped a Riot. India had won independence in 1947, but the joy was short-lived. As the country was divided into India and Pakistan, a wave of violence exploded between Hindus and Muslims. Neighbors became enemies. Streets ran red. Cities burned with rage and revenge. For Gandhi, it was heartbreaking. He had spent his life preaching unity, peace, and nonviolence. But now, his people were turning on each other. So he made a choice, one that would stun the world. At the age of 77, Gandhi began a hunger strike. Not for protest, not for politics, but for peace. He refused to eat. Not until the killing stopped. No speeches, no press conferences, just silence. And as the days passed, something extraordinary happened. The violence began to slow. Enemies laid down their weapons. Former rioters began guarding temples and mosques. Community leaders begged Gandhi to eat again, promising to restore peace. One man, no army, no threats, just stillness. Gandhi's frail body, lying on a cot, became the conscience of a nation. Because when words failed, his silence roared. He wasn't seeking attention. He wasn't playing politics. He was offering himself his life as a mirror, so that India could see itself and choose differently. That hunger strike wasn't weakness. It was spiritual strength in its purest, most potent form. And as we move into the next part of his journey, we'll see how Gandhi's refusal to hate, even in the face of personal attack, would become his most powerful act of all. After fasting to stop his people from killing each other, Gandhi believed his message of peace had taken root. But the hardest test was still ahead when peace meant forgiving those who betrayed you. Part 4. The day he refused to hate. Independence had come. The British flag was gone. The dream had been realized. But peace was still fragile. India was bleeding from within. Hindu and Muslim tensions were still raw. And now, even Gandhi himself became a target not from colonizers, but from his own countrymen. Some believed he had gone too far, too forgiving, too soft, too ready to embrace those who had once ruled them. They whispered that he was betraying the Hindu cause, that he was giving too much to the Muslims, that his compassion was weakness. But Gandhi did not back down. When stones were thrown, he didn't retaliate. He bowed. When insults flew, he responded with a smile not of pride, but of deep sadness for what fear could turn people into. He told his followers again and again, "An eye for an eye will make the whole world blind." That wasn't a slogan. It was a lifeline, a truth that had carried him through jails, marches, hunger strikes, and now into the storm of his own people's anger. He knew the second you become what you fight against, you've already lost. To Gandhi, hating the oppressor was no different than being one. So he stood firm, unshaken, Not because it was easy, but because his soul had already chosen the harder path, the path of unbreakable love. And in the final chapter of his life, that love would be tested in the most heartbreaking way. What would Gandhi choose in his final moments when hate was standing right in front of him? After refusing to hate, even in the face of betrayal, Gandhi's path had reached its final bend. But as always, he walked it with grace. Part 5. His final step. It was the 30th of January, 1948. Gandhi walked through the gardens of Birla House in New Delhi, heading toward evening prayers. His frame was thin, almost fragile, draped in simple cloth. No guards surrounded him. No armor, no arrogance. Just humility, just peace. Then a man stepped forward. 3 bullets rang out. Gandhi collapsed, but before his body hit the ground, he uttered his final words. "Hey Ram!" A prayer, a whisper of surrender, not to death, but to the divine. Even in the moment of violence, he chose peace. He did not cry out in fear. He did not curse his killer. He met hatred with remembrance of God. He died not as a politician, not even as a national icon, but as a timeless reminder that one life rooted in love, humility, and nonviolence can move the world. Gandhi never held public office. He never sought fame. He had no army, no wealth, no throne. But he gave India its soul. And he gave humanity something even more rare, a mirror, to see what we could become if we dared to live by what we claim to believe. His final step was not an ending. It was an invitation. And as we step into the final reflection of his story, we must ask ourselves the question Gandhi's entire life whispered. What are we truly here to do? And who will we choose to become? Gandhi didn't lead with noise. He led with stillness. He didn't demand power. He embodied it. He stood when others bowed. He bowed when others lashed out. And in doing so, he became a force not of resistance, but of resilience. Now, more than ever, the world doesn't need louder voices. It needs deeper ones. It needs yours. So if this story awakens something inside you, don't let it end here. Share it. Let someone else remember the power of peace. Comment below. What does Gandhi's path mean to you? Subscribe to Mindful Way Television. ***, where silence is strength and real stories reveal the soul. Because the smallest step taken in truth echoes further than you think. And maybe the greatest revolution begins with one still moment.